What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another Darien Lake update. And today's update will be a slight bit different than other vlogs and updates in the past. I went to Darien Lake a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to report on some of the things I saw in that visit, and I'm also going to report on some things other people have said about the park that I know, just to kind of give you a feel of how the park is doing right now. I also did time some of the operations at Darien Lake the last time I went, so we'll get to look at that today as well. In this video, I'm trying to give you guys a feel of where the park is at right now, and if it's worth a visit if you're still trying to decide. I'll also be mixing in some footage in here and there, so you guys can just enjoy that as well. And yeah, so I'm just gonna take you guys through my day at the park, and you guys will also get to hear some other things that have happened since that visit. But before we get into all of that, make sure to do me a huge favor by liking this video, as that is the best way to help us out against the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe to my channel for more Darien Lake content coming very soon. Now, with that being said, let's hop into the video. One thing that was immediately noticeable when we got out of the car was that there was a giant line to enter the park. This has seemed to have been a trend ever since they dropped the COVID protocols. It seems like they're catching people off guard with the new security, and people are just confused about what they have to do. And it does not help that there is only a couple metal detectors, which really slows things down and have led to extremely long lines to get into the park, which is not good. I don't really know what needs to be done to fix this, but Six Flags definitely needs to clean this up in some way, shape, or form. The first thing I noticed when I walked into the park is that employees were actually handing out these little slips that said they'd be doing a special barbecue little restaurant pop-up thing over at the pavilions by Ride of Steel. So since that area was opened up, I was able to get some really nice shots of Ride of Steel, which I was really happy about. I actually decided to try this new food option, and it was actually pretty solid. It was quite a bit frustrating when I walked up because they're having some technical issues with the iPads or whatever they were using, which caused the wait time for this to be a lot longer than I would have liked it to be. But when I finally got past that, they gave me a slip to take down to one of the pavilions where they were actually handing out the food. It was kind of set up buffet style. I didn't really get any footage of it, but there were some employees helping to hand out food to everybody, and they did a pretty good job. The food itself was actually pretty solid. Not the best barbecue I've ever had, but you can't really go wrong with barbecue. They also had some other unique options like baked beans and potato salad, which you don't really see at most stands of the park, so that was really nice. You could also get your drink cup filled here or buy a soft drink if you wanted to. However, it was kind of dicey because the soft drink machines look like they haven't been touched in 2 years, literally, as there were spider webs around some of the machines. So definitely watch out for that if you're ever down there. I actually got a pulled pork sandwich, so that was pretty good. Definitely better than what you'd expect from a park like Darien Lake. And in even better news, apparently they are continuing this for the rest of the summer on weekends, so that's pretty good to see. The official name for this is the Backyard BBQ at the Lakeview Grove. So if you have a dining plan, I definitely recommend checking this place out. I did that a little later on in the day, but one of the first things I did was go straight to Ride of Steel to see how it was running. The last time I was at the park, it was pretty cold out, so it was running very slow and gave little to no air time. However, this time I got a third row ride on it. It was running much better and gave some pretty solid air time, although I did get stapled, which did hinder the ride experience a bit for me. The line was roughly a little over a half an hour with some okay operations. The dispatch that I timed took about a minute 40, minute 45, so I wasn't very impressed with that. I've definitely seen much worse on this ride, especially when they have to open restraints to let guests out that cannot fit, but overall seemed like an improvement on last time. The next thing I did that day was I rode Viper, and it wasn't that great compared to some of my other rides I'd had earlier in the year. However, the operations were still really good even after it got delayed by a kid throwing up in the station. But the time I did get for the Viper crew was under a minute, which is really good for a train that's that long. So shout out to the Viper crew. Next I took a spin on Tantrum and it was running pretty good as always, and I timed the operations and they weren't that good for Tantrum, unfortunately. Tantrum has 8 people per train, so that obviously makes it a lot easier to check all the restraints and dispatch the train, but unfortunately the dispatch timed in at about 1 minute 15 seconds, which is kind of a long time for only 8 restraints to check, especially since Viper that has 28 people per train can get dispatched in a shorter time period than Tantrum was. I then went over to Mining Racer to get the time. I didn't really want to ride it because Mining Racer really beats you up, but when I went to go time it, Mining Racer had about a 2 minute and 15 second time period where ride attendants were checking restraints, but unfortunately the train never even dispatched because it broke down right before they gave the all clear. But I felt that was enough of an indicator to show that Mining Racer's operations were not very good, as the dispatch took over 2 minutes, or the hypothetical dispatch would have taken over 2 minutes, so I definitely wasn't very impressed with that. We then actually headed over to a stand to try to get a Gatorade with the free $5 of in-park credit we got from doing a survey, but it didn't even work, and the supervisor for one of the stands couldn't even figure it out, so they just gave us the Gatorade for free, which was nice, but it was a big pain, so I wasn't very impressed with that. We also did Shipwreck Falls at one point, and that was pretty refreshing. It's a pretty basic ride, but it definitely gets you wet on a hot day, so that's there as well. The last thing I did was I went on a moto coaster for the first time this season, and I was pretty impressed with how the ride was running. I thought the launch was great as always, and it even gave some little pops of airtime on some of the turns, so that was a pleasant surprise as well. As far as the operations went for moto coaster, I wasn't too impressed, even though the time was only about 1 minute 15 seconds. Moto coaster is another ride that should be really easy to check and shouldn't be taking any longer than Viper, so I wasn't too impressed with that. But then again, the operations weren't terrible, so that was an improvement, I guess. But overall, I had a really okay day at the park. It had some big down points, but there were also some nice surprises, but overall it wasn't really the best day at the park, and I would still say it was an improvement over some of the visits I had in May. A couple of other miscellaneous things I wanted to mention is that it appears there is a construction vehicle over where the old water park used to be, so I've heard about this. I haven't seen it for myself, but the next time I go to the park I'll be sure to check it out. Another general observation that I made was there did seem to be a few more flowers just randomly planted around the park or inside the mulch of trees. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was definitely nice to see an improvement in decor. They also added these flags to line the gate of the basketball game, so that's something I noticed as well, even though it wasn't that big of a deal. However, another thing I did hear on the negative side is that food operations have still been very poor, as I've heard people have had to wait up to an hour to get food at some locations, which is definitely something you do not want to see. One last thing I've heard is that Predator has been down lately, and the train has been placed on the transfer track. I've heard they've been doing some work on it, but I guess we'll have to see. That train always seems to be having issues, so I guess we'll see how that ends up. But overall, my visit to the park was not too great. I wasn't too impressed. There were some subtle improvements to the park which I was happy about, but a lot of the larger problems that the park has remained. Also, another thing I wanted to say is that I didn't really get to fully time all of the operations at the park because my phone was running out of storage, but that's definitely something I could do in the future if you guys want me to do that, so make sure to let me know down in the comments below. Also, if you like this style of video, let me know down in the comments below, and also let me know if you had any recent experiences at Darien Lake and how the park fared during your visit. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more Darien Lake content coming soon. Now, with all that being said, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.